Thank you for everybody coming again on such a stormy night. We have a big night, number 6 meeting, kind of like over the hump tonight. We had about close to 90 yesterday between online and in person. And before we start tonight, we always have try help one another out. And Friday night at 7 o'clock over at the school gym, we're going to have one of the fundraisers for one of our staff who is unfortunately going through some unexpected medical expenses. And we've done this before, so please come out and support that, all right? And that's just in our one of our support staff at the school. So I think that's about the 3rd staff at the school we've had to do that for this year. And so we try to help them out. So please come on by. Tonight, we will have a look at the Chief Red Bear. There's health and well-being still coming up. So we're still got some ways to go on the nation talks. Tonight, the chief will lead off with where she's at, or where the council is at, followed by Red Bear, okay? And I know that everybody's very anxious to hear what's going on between yesterday and today. Yesterday, we had a framework that we're working with. Today, the chief will outline to you how they're managing, how we're governing under that framework, and then some of the operations and management and practice that's been going on in the last, over the last year or so since they took over. And if I could, please bear with me as a historian, I can't help it, I'm a teacher. It's been 150 years since we signed the treaty. And when we were born in the last century, me and Malcolm. But this is where we're at. 150 years, we've got back the land. We're getting the land back 1907, and we're just now getting the kids back, okay? We're not quite there yet. We're still working through some of the key features of the agreement and trying to work through them. And yes, it's a little bit shaky, but we sort of have to be patient as we work through these governance things. So tonight, they want to clearly outline where they're at, and please be respectful with your questioning. Let them give their presentation, and like we've been doing all this time, and we've been doing ever since I've been moderating meetings for the last 30-some years, one at a time, please, okay? And your question will answer all of our, give us answers to questions we all want to know, answers that we all want to know. So if you please, I'll let the chief take over from here. Thank you, Grady, for the smudge. Thank you, Denise, for the prayer for their food. And thank you to who? Jamie and his crew again. All right, same guys over at the golf course. So thank you very much, guys. Josh is going to come and take attendance here. And right now we have 14 participants, and I'll let you take over. Thank you.
Okay, a warm good evening to everybody. Like Terrence said, first of all, thank you, Denise, for the prayer tonight, for the food, and the prayer this evening. Thank you, Grady, Uncle Grady, for these smudge and for that what the medicines that are burning in order to bring us to all with the common purpose and unity in mind. And of course, Jamie, I don't know if he's already left, but we're so fortunate to have the golf course and the amazing cooks within the kitchen over at the golf course for sure. Before I start with Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge and the update on that, as well as some of the history, I think that it's really important that we discuss first and foremost that, Andre talked about this a little bit, about how our nation's laws are spiritual, as well as everything that we do, especially when it comes to children and youth and families, and the well-being of our nation is actually a spiritual exercise. And I've actually asked Grady as the Oscapios for our community, as well as the person leading the cultural unit, to speak a little about the spiritual aspect and what has been done and continues to be ongoing as we do this very sacred work. So I'm here to introduce Grady Leroy.
So first of all, I recognize everyone here tonight in a good way, and I'm truly happy that I'm here with tobacco for a good thing. You know, a lot of times I come to this community, not community, but this hall. A lot of our people we put to rest in this time, eh? And I always look as a past leader and try to see how we can come together. You know, we as Chief Terry had said, you know, we're getting the land back, you know, and that's going to be a vote that you're going to have to decide if it's good or not. That's going to be coming down the pipe here. We have our children that's coming. You know, they're not going to all move home like what was thought. I think there was a little bit of a hope, I guess, maybe, of some of the people that, you know, all those ones that are out there away from us, that somehow we're going to have a home here for them. And, you know, it'd be the greatest thing if we could. But if they're living with families already that are looking after them, giving them all the things that they need to enjoy life, you know, who are we to go and take that away from them? You know, we're just going to create more trauma, more hurt, more pain. And our community here, you know, that's the work we're doing. You know, we're hoping to do, I guess. And why I say hoping to do is it depends on you as our members, how we treat one another. You know, I don't think, and I shouldn't, I'll say it better. I know that no one that is working for Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge right now has a malicious heart. Malicious meaning that they're mean and, you know, they want to hurt people. I truly in my heart of hearts believe everyone that we have there means the best for what we're trying to do. And it hurts me when, you know, there's times over the last year, and I've been here 2 years, and I didn't think I was, you know, capable of trying to keep this all going the same road and stuff. Some of the people that put their hearts on the line were trashed by our people. Trashed. When you know, and you get to know these people, they're not someone that you could throw away. I honestly believe that each one of them that are working in this organization we have, they have a home here. They're making this their home because they believe in something that's real. You know, that we have an opportunity to make things right as much as we can for our children. And the sad part about it is, I don't know what drives people to be so hurtful. You know, that's the only way I could put it is you got to be hurtful. In order to make yourself feel good, you got to be hurtful. And that sucks. You know, the old people always tell us, like, what you give out, you're going to get back in the end, right? You know, and I don't wish that on the people that are doing that, but really, if we're ever going to make this work, we have to pull together, like as a not just a community, but as a nation. You know, no matter where our kids are, and the things that we need to go through, we have to have respect for one another when we disagree with one another. You know, I used to listen, and I was a bad kid. I never used to listen to my parents, but they used to always try to chase me away and get out of here when you know, the older folks are visiting and talking. But that's what they used to talk about, you know, the respect people had for one another back in the day when you leave your door unlocked and someone wanted to come in and make themselves a cup of tea, they'd be able to do that and then move on, keep on going. And I remember I used to think, you know, well, how does that happen, right? How does that happen? And those old people used to do it that way. And it's trust, right? It's trusting those ones that are around us. And that's spirituality when you really, really look at it. And I was, as at council today, and I'm glad that I was invited there to be a part of what we're going to show today, because it gave me an opportunity to let them know what I think an Indian is, a spiritual Indian. A spiritual Indian is, what can I do for you to make your life better? I'll give you that. I will give you that. That's what it is. But today, what can you give me? And I have no responsibility to give you nothing in return. That's what today's society is teaching, not only our kids, but even some of the older folks. What can I get out of you to make me better? Never mind what you want from me. But that's the difference, how they switched it on us. And we allowed that to happen. We allowed it to happen, to be colonialized like that. And that's sad. Because guess what? There's kids out there that are depending on all of us. And if we're all going to think that way, none of our kids are going to survive. The old people that I go to the lodges with and stuff, they're saying, it's been said for over 10, 15 years now by those old people, some of them that are gone, that used to carry those pipes. Things are going to get tough. How are we going to survive if we don't work together? And you think about that. I mean, I wouldn't be the person I am without all of you. You gave me that opportunity to be leadership in the community. You gave me that opportunity to be an escapios to those old folks out there that I loved, and I still love them even though they're gone. So when we talk about this work, there's probably going to be some things that are said, and it's not going to be my way of doing things. It's not going to be your way of doing things. But that doesn't give me the right to stand up and start yelling at anybody. Who am I in my little world? So when you do have a question, there's no question. Ask it, but be respectful. As Chief Terry was saying, there's no need for that stuff. That's what you learned over there. That old school that was over here. How to disrespect one another. That's what they taught. They taught us to disrespect one another. That's not us. We're better than that. At least I'm trying to be better than that. I have no will or power over you to change you or anything like that. But there's a way, I was lost. I went to the lodge, and that's the first time I honestly cried. I honestly cried because I knew I was home now. But that's the way I found my spirituality. That may not be the same for everybody. And that's why I said, culture is not going to save anybody. It's your own self that's going to save yourself. Whether if you believe in the Catholic way of life, the religious way of life, Nakota way of life, Soda way of life, Cree way of life, that's all what we want to help you with, no matter who you are or where you are. But it's going to take time. We could have the best wishes, just like I said today, we could have the Cadillac of services. But we have nobody there to help us to produce anything, to make things happen. And it's just talk, right? I think the days of my will over your will is over. We got to work together at this. There's some things, again, that our group's been working on for many, many, many days, and countless hours. I mean, heartache. I mean, a lot of differences of opinions. But at the end of the day, we're trying to do what's right for all our kids, not just the ones we see, the ones that are, there's certain things that we don't know about yet. And I think it's coming. But I keep on hearing that voice in my head about, you know, at that ceremony when the old people said it's gonna get bad. Start preparing. And how are we gonna prepare as a community if we're all apart? If we're away from one another? We don't love one another the way we should. You know? So spirituality is more than just talking about it. It's different than culture. Culture is different than spirituality. Culture, it's available to you. Spirituality, that's yours. And how you connect with the Creator, how you want to connect, or are you willing to connect? So with that, Hamsa.
Hi, hi. Good. And he's right. If you're going to be overly critical, it stifles it stifles dialogue. It stifles our discussions. And constructive, please, constructive. We want to start talking with one another, please.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge the past leadership that are here that, and also not here. Our 5 chiefs besides myself that have all played a role in getting us to where we are today. The council members, the Katayak, the knowledge keepers, all the people on whose shoulders that we stand on as we have grabbed the baton and we continue to do the work. I would also like to acknowledge our council members who are here today. Councillor Brandon, Councillor Curtis. I'm looking, okay, I have to say this because I missed it well, I didn't miss it, he missed it. The myth, the man, the legend, Councillor Malcolm. And I don't want to miss anybody. We have Councillor Ira over there. And Councillor J. Allison Whiteman over there. And Councillor Joshua will be joining us later on. His daughter has a birthday today, and I think they brought her to Mushum Pans for supper. So they'll be coming after that. So did I miss anyone? I don't think I did, but so that's where Councillor Joshua is, and it's her 18th birthday, which is a wonderful age because that's just on the brink of womanhood. And you know, in our old ways, that was a time where we started to live life as an adult. And so we wish her a very good happy birthday. It's almost been a year since we were elected by the people. And as I've said in the other 5 sessions, we've spent a year in learning, bonding, teaching each other, getting taught by other people, open hearts, open minds, open mouths, and you know, in how we've worked together. And there's been many issues that have been highlighted. But what we have discovered is that regardless of what issue that we've been working on, they're all interconnected. Every single one of them, whether it's about the climate change, whether it's about our waters, whether it's about the child welfare or the state of who we are as Cowessess people and how it relates to sovereignty, how it relates to our 1907. On Sunday, we're going to be giving the update on the 1907 as well as a discussion as a community about the agricultural benefits, otherwise known as cows and plows, and other potential specific claims, if that's what we wanted to look at, because it's not only that one. And so we're very interested in being guided by the people, especially on the agricultural benefits, because as we know, the trend right now is, you know, whether it's for a specific land claim. For us, it's the 1907. It may be the agricultural benefits, which are the otherwise known as cows and plows. It may be mismanagement of funds from the Indian agent. It may be veterans claims as well, mistreatment of veterans. There's all sorts of claims that people are having right now, the treaty annuities. There's a lot for us to consider in moving forward and the impact on treaty and inherent rights. And it needs all of us to tap into not only our ancestral knowledge, but for us to remember when we were little, regardless of how old we are, what our mums and dads and our mushims and kokums told us about all of these issues. Because we as a council, and I know that tonight's about CRBCL, but I wanted to say a little bit about Sunday and what the talk is going to be then, is that we have an opportunity right now. We know, first of all, the update on the 1907 is we know for at least 50 years, 70 years, our people, our leadership, our families have known about the land surrender and what we had lost. There have been countless council chiefs that have worked on this, many of them gone on. And so we know that there's been a continuum of leadership to discuss the 1907, for our people to contemplate it and to think about it. And when we're able to share where we're at, that the people will know that it's not us making the decision, that most likely we're just the council that are the last ones in line of several generations who have worked on this. It's not our work. It's our ancestors' work. It's our Mushim and Kokums' work. That's who brought us to where we are today. But on these other ones, like the cows and plows, that's new. That is just, you know, in the last couple of years, if you will. And that was just on last term, as well as this term's shoulders to contemplate. And that's a very heavy responsibility if there's an impact to treaty and inherent rights. And so we need to hear from our people, from our families. We need to have all of us discuss it with our kids, our grandkids, our grandparents, and talk about, is this the road that we want to go down? And we as your council will listen if it's yes, if it's no, because it's all of our way forward that we need to look at. And so that will be the discussion on Sunday as we move into looking at where we're going to go as a council for year 2, 3, and 4. So tonight is Thursday. I'm losing my dates here. Thursday, right? So we have, you know, I'm sure that all of us, especially when we hear about the payouts and everything else, we've already started those discussions. We've already started the discussions about the cows and plows, and we have relatives, and, you know, I've had friends who've taken me out for supper with their cows and plows money, and, you know, like all of those things. And, you know, not me. Somebody said not me. To mush and pans. And, you know, so it's continuing that discussion and giving us that guidance. We really, truly need that guidance on how we move forward. And also we'll get into it on Sunday. But even if we submit an intent, doesn't mean until we receive an offer that we will accept it. Okay, so that's also, you know, it's not that if we have to make a decision, an absolute decision, even if we move forward with even putting in an intent, if we get told by our membership that's not the way to go, we could stop it at any time until it's signed on the dotted line. So there is time within that, but also time is limited in terms of where the government is in priority of settling these and expediting these claims. So once again, I know that this is not about tonight's topic, but I really wanted to set up the topic of discussion for Sunday and to please invite and also to invite all of us. And if our members, our family members can't make it, talk to them and get their opinions, get what they're thinking, and voice them to us. And if you don't feel comfortable at the meeting on Sunday, text us, call us, write us, do whatever you need to do. We have our council members. It doesn't have to be me. Go and sit and talk with them and let them know how you feel, because I guarantee you, we do discuss all of these at our council table. So please let us know which way to go on that. It's all of our futures and it's our children's futures as well. So that brings us to tonight's topic. And this is one that for all of us is so near and dear to our hearts. It's about what inside of us, each and every one of us. And I have to say that even for myself, you know, being a mother, a daughter, a granddaughter, and being from this community, going to day school here, you know, I really had to, throughout this whole past few months that I've been here as chief, and in dealing with child welfare and how our kids were treated, those intergenerational impacts, the harm that I experienced, which was very, very traumatic for me when I went to day school. And I know that all of us have been impacted, whether ourselves personally or intergenerationally. And that's where the pain, the hurt, and wanting to do better comes from. And having to address within ourselves how we have to be healthy helpers, because I had to look at myself and keep myself in check about if my own hurt and pain about what I experienced at that day school, as well as some of the pain and trauma that I dealt with, that I had to deal with as an intergenerational survivor, if that was impacting my thought process and the way that I was thinking about how we move forward as we contemplate what looking after our kids really means. And so it's really important that each and every one of us really do that and do those check-ins in being that healthy helper, because it's not our fault what was brought on us in those schools or other schools. That's not our fault and not ours to carry, but we do carry that burden, and it's up to us in order to address that. And so those are some of the very personal issues that each and every one of us on council, working with the staff, that we had to learn that trust amongst ourselves, trust each other in looking at how we move forward and how we really address what looking after our kids means. Because we know that what has happened to us has never worked for us. We're lucky to be alive. There are those who aren't lucky to be alive, that died as a result of that school, or died from the pain and trauma from those schools that we've had. We also know that there's so many kids through the 60 scoop, through adoptions, that are only finding out who they are now as Cowessess people, and feel that disenfranchisement, that they feel that disconnect from our community here in the urban areas, on other reserves, and they want to feel that connectedness back home here. But they don't know how. And there's that disconnect sometimes between those of us who have been lucky to always have that identity and know that we belong here, and those who feel like they've never belonged here. And sometimes through our pain and trauma, we've treated each other like sometimes that we belong here more than another person has. And that is what we've done to each other through our own learning. You know, and that's some of the checking that we've had to do even amongst ourselves as we've learned, you know, as we've attempted to help heal each other through some of our pain and hurt and trauma. That when we talk about the kids, it's not just the kids, like Uncle Grady said, about the kids that we can see. It's especially the ones that we don't know and the ones that we can't see, because they themselves don't even know. Or if they know, they don't know how to connect back home here. But Cowessess blood runs through them just like it does for us. And they are entitled to, and they have every right to belong here and to come home here and to be loved by us, just like somebody who's lived on the reserve all their life. And that is really, those are the principles that really kept us together as we moved forward in this. Cowessess was the first to enter into C-92 or Bill C-92. And it was hastily. We all acknowledge that. And there are lessons, hard lessons, that have been taught and learned. And some of those hard lessons have hurt us. And we have screamed loud, or we've screamed inside ourselves, because we don't want to continue that anymore, because enough has been done to us. And we want to do better, and we want our leadership to do better, and we want our child welfare agency to do better, because we've lost our loved ones to addictions, to mental health, to suicide completions, to just becoming so frustrated they don't want to have anything to do with Cowessess. And we know that every person lost is another person that we shouldn't have lost. And that's why it hurts us, and that's why we lash out. And that's why it's hard for us, because we do want to love each other. I know we want to love each other, and we want to extend that love. And it's about unlearning old behaviors and learning the ones that Creator has meant for us all to have. And I share that with you because those are lessons that I've had to learn myself as a mother, as a grandmother, as a daughter, as a kin. You know, my daughter, and she's given me permission to share this. When she was 15, she attempted suicide. And that was the hardest day for us as a family. And when I say attempted suicide, it was only because my son found her that she's alive with us here today. And she wasn't doing it as a cry for help. She did it to end her life, and her life would have been ended that night if my son did not find her in the nick of time. And we had to go through ICU with her. We had to go through that entire process, first of all, to get her physical health together, and then had to try to navigate through an incredible, tough system that didn't help with youth mental health, that didn't help and was not there in a cultural way that we needed. But most importantly, what I had to learn was that, yes, I did my best by my children, but my best was not what my children needed in order for what they needed to be the best that they could. And I had to change my parenting style, and I had to ask forgiveness from my children, because they weren't asked to be born into that either. And it was only through intensive years-long therapy and working together in both a cultural and the Western way that, thank God, my daughter is still alive at 29 years old today. And she has a degree and she's working for the people. She's a water warrior. She's a journalist. But because of what I carried within me, and I didn't know how to parent her the way that she did, we could have lost as a people that water warrior, that person that is doing what she can today. And that's the same, I think, I feel for all of us in what the very grave danger of what we have to lose. That's what is so important about what we're doing. And that is what's so important about how we acknowledge that we could have done better, we should have done better, but now with what we have, we are honestly, with the best hearts possible, bringing in the people with the best knowledge from our own worldview, our indigenous worldview, as in to assist us in how to do it. And guess what? Every single person in this room, every single person in our community and our nation, we are the experts. We know what needs to be done. And that's who we need to tap into. And that is what we are talking about when we're trying to look at, first of all, stop the bleed in all ways, which I believe that we have. And in moving forward, offer that opportunity for us to have that true voice in where we're going. It doesn't matter. It's very important for us to acknowledge yesterday, to have the lessons learned, but what matters today is our intention and our action for the children and families that need us the most. Because I'll tell you right now, working in the area of human services before I become chief, working especially in the area of missing and murdered Indigenous women, people, there is no sound that is worse than hearing a mother and a kokum wail from right here when they've lost their child. And that's what I always hold within me, that sound that I will never, ever lose in my ear from more than one mother when we do this work. That's how sacred this work is. So we're not perfect. None of us are. But our love is there, our intention, our action, our ears, our minds, our hearts, our spirits are thinking 7 generations ahead. But we need every single one of us in order to get there. We will be the speakers. We will be the ones to do the foundation, the frameworks. We will take the hits when we have to, but we need all of us to support the process and to contribute to the process in us moving forward. So if I could ask for the next slide, please. Most of us, and once again, we always start with this slide. Mio Pamatsuin, the good life, what Creator meant for us. The inherent right to living a good life from birth to death, the inherent right for us to raise our children in that life. We are born with that. Our children are born with that. And that is what we hold also in our minds always, is as our North Star, that Mio Pamatsuin, and every morning to get up and to try to do that as best we can. Next slide. For Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge, it was created as a response to Bill C-92. for us to take jurisdiction over our children and our families. And that's where the Meopamatsuwan Act comes from. And so we look at C-92, that's a federal law, and it affirmed the right that First Nations have the responsibility of child and family services. Pardon me. Then we have the Meopamatsuwan Act, and it's the Cowessess law establishing how we will assert the right to care for our children and families. The coordination, and that is Cowessess law, the coordination agreement is trilaterally or multilaterally what we have to establish how all levels of government will work together. We as First Nations, we as Cowessess First Nation, the province and the feds. The fiscal agreement is the agreement that outlines how our programming will be funded, how our nation will be funded. And Chief Red Bear Lodge is the service delivery organization that focuses on services that support Cowessess First Nation children and families. Now, what I have to share about this is that when we came onto council, what we saw and what we learned as we started to go through C-92, as we talked to the experts that actually helped craft C-92, not the Meopamatsuwan, but craft the act. The ones that worked like Dr. Blackstock, we talked with Naomi Metallic today. You know, Dr. Helena Gaspar is assisting us. It is the evolution of moving towards sovereignty as we assert what we have never given up is our inherent right to look after our children and families. But what we found was that when you look at the C-92, and remember, Cowessess was first. And once again, I'm going to say this, and it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but not really, because I think all of us who are parents can know this. Especially when we're young and inexperienced, our first kid is kind of the practice kid, right? You know, like they're the ones that kind of like grew up with us, and we made a lot of mistakes that we didn't really with the ones that came after us, you know? Like, let's be for real. I had to take that accountability for myself as a parent as well, you know? And Cowessess was the first. We didn't have any mentors. We didn't have any best practices or lessons learned or promising practices. We didn't have that. The governance table did not have that. We just had our good hearts. And so what happened, what we believe happened, was that in not understanding child welfare, not understanding and having that practical experience in child welfare, in human services, how families work, the evolution and devolution of how we got here, of the province looking after our kids, child and family services agencies looking at our kids, and all of those types of things. When we came into council, what we saw was that there was a direct funding, that all monies for C-92 went into Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge, that was created as the child welfare arm, the one that is to look after the children. Now, from our perspective, those of us who've worked in human services, that have worked in child welfare, we saw that as upside down, a little bit topsy-turvy with what that looks like, because C-92 is about governance. It's about the government, who is us, determining how best the services will be utilized for our children and families, for us, for that Meopamatsuwan. And so instead of the governance table taking the responsibility of how that was going to look and figuring out the finances and how that's going to impact through program and service delivery, what had happened is that It flowed right through the nation into Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge and gave the jurisdiction to a child welfare agency that was brand new to determine the well-being of our children, family, community, and nation. And that was very unfair to do that to the staff as well as the Board of Governors that were created, because the Board of Governors do not have responsibility for the nation, for the nation's responsibility of how to look after our children and families overall. The other important thing to talk about before this is that in our rush to be first, basically in 6 months, we went kit and caboodle into what the government, even the government, has given other nations 5 years to complete. So under the framework of C92, once a nation declares that they want to become a C92 band and assert jurisdiction under that C92, the government will actually fund 5 years of development before a First Nation will even have to open its doors to services and taking that on. We have we've developed a working relationship with Carrier Sakani, who is, it's a BC child welfare agency. And they've been in existence for over 20 years and are considered very much front runners in excellent service delivery to nations and families and children. And even they, in having over 20 years of experience, they have not even moved into protection yet. And they have been preparing for protection for the last 10 years. And they are very slowly and methodically ensuring that they do everything in prevention and aftercare. And now they've put together the model for post-majority and trying to do the best that they can with all of those areas before they take on the jurisdiction of being responsible for a child's life and being responsible for carrying what could be a life and death situation for that family. We did that in a weekend. Cowessess did that in a weekend. And we created legislation in 5 days in order for this to happen. We staffed our child welfare agency within 6 months, up to 70 people. We didn't have policies, procedures, service models in order to ensure that we were doing the best that we can for our children and families. And we jeopardized our children and families because we did not do the work we needed to. And what seemed like a lot of money, and probably the most money that Cowessess has seen as a funding pot coming in, those of us who've worked in child welfare, those of us who've worked in human services, knew that was a drop in the bucket for what Cowessess was looking at taking over. And then what we saw, because there may have been, and that's okay, that's a lesson learned, a lack of understanding about how to put all of those pieces together before we took on that incredible responsibility to do it right. There was a lot of money spending. There was a lot of spending money in our community and our nation that was meant to go to kids and families. And instead, under the guise of prevention, All sorts of things started to get funded. Staff getting hired without policies and all those foundational pieces that our children and our families deserved, that our staff deserved in order to do their job. All of that started to happen. And then when we also got onto council, we said, well, how is that breakdown? How much for prevention? How much for intervention? How much for protection? All of those things. And what is the reporting process? We were told when we came in, there is no reporting that's required. And that this amount of money, you could spend it any way that you want. And through our working with the government, because we also had to look at, we were at the end of an agreement, and we were looking at, first of all, a 1-year extension agreement, and then the successor agreement to what we got to our original agreement. And so that's when we had to keep on doing the deep dives. Well, what does this mean? What are other agencies doing? How much is this getting funded? How does the Mio Pamatsuen Act, what liabilities does that have for us? And it was a huge learning process for us because it held Cowessess extremely fully responsible for the well-being of our children and families, because we used very specific wording in our Mio Pamatsuen Act that the province and as well as the feds can say, we have to follow your act and you have asserted the jurisdiction. And so it doesn't matter if you have a kid in Prince George, it doesn't matter if you have a kid in Halifax and all the places in between. Your act states that you will take care of them. We didn't have even one bilateral agreement with any other province other than the province that we reside in, what is now Saskatchewan. There was not even an ability to assert what was in our act. The coordination agreement, we found out when we saw these very glaring errors that the coordination agreement we signed did not, and we were the ones that are most affected. That was our agreement. We found out that we did not even have the ability to open up the coordination agreement in order to amend it. Only Saskatchewan and Canada did. How is that sovereignty? How is that us asserting our jurisdiction? There was so many things that we found out along the way that in our haste, we had to try our best in order to amend. The fiscal agreement was based on a funding formula that was created, I think it was in 1968, where it was 2021, we're now in 2024 with that funding formula. And because that funding formula was in the coordination agreement, we couldn't even open that up for discussion on how to change that funding formula without asking hat in hand, either the province or Canada, to please open up that coordination agreement for us so that we could start having those discussions. These are all things that we haven't really talked about because we were too busy learning. We were too busy trying to get the work done. If we had come before this time, it would sound political. It would sound like we're trying to trash. It would sound like we are contributing to the disharmony in our community, in our nation. And one of the main things that every single one of us, when we were campaigning, what the people told us was they wanted unity. We wanted unity. We wanted community again. We wanted to be a strong Cowessess people again. whether you live on reserve or off reserve. And we wanted not to talk about the challenges that we had. It's open. We're truth tellers. We will share that. But why go to community and talk about all what we're coming up against without a plan, without talking about how we're going to address that, how we're going to move forward? Otherwise, it's just, whatting and complaining, right? And so we didn't want to do that. We were committed to why we were elected. And that was for unity for our people. And that was how we were going to work together. So we, as a council, as staff at Chief Red Bear Lodge, we carried that burden in many, working most weeks, 5 to 7 days a week, 8 to 10 hours a day, outing fires, stopping the bleed, especially the financial bleed as well as the liability bleed for what we needed to do. One of the other things that we found out as well, we took jurisdiction over one family in protection before we had any sort of policies and procedures, and we were not ready to help that family in the way that they needed to. And that's on us that we did that. In potentially losing a life in that. And there was a line there that said protection, an amount of, what was the amount, Nicole or Andre, for protection? 1.2 million. Sounds like a lot, doesn't it? Well, once again, we were told that we weren't told exactly what that protection was. So in the road to getting to protection, there were staff hired, there was the starting to be the transfer and the understanding of cases of protection from the province to Chief Red Bear Lodge, from other CFS agencies. And then all of a sudden, we get a bill from the province, is how it went, for exactly $1.7 million, because historically, the feds paid the province $1.7 million per year for 10 children that are in care, that are outside of the nation, that MSS looked for. That 1.7 was never told to any of us that money, that bill was coming. That created an immediate deficit for us. And then when children go into protection, even on our nation, whether it's on our nation or outside of our nation, because of our Meal Pamatsuan Act, we are still, because that act is live, we are still responsible. And we are still in the middle of negotiations, even though we don't receive money for it, that we are still being held liable for paying that bill, for paying that third level service to another, whether hopefully we're just crossing our fingers and we are going to do everything that we can, including a potential human rights complaint and or taking the province to court, that we don't have to pay for our children yet that are off of our nation, that there are federal transfer dollars for. Those are some of the challenges that we have had in these years. Post-majority. Sounds great. It is a responsibility, we believe, in order for us, for children in care, to take care of those children. Canada then we're like, great, we get to look after kids till they're almost 27 and they deserve that. Whether it's education or addiction services, mental health, helping them with rent, all of that. And then we find out that that child had to age out of care while on reserve. And there are other criteria within that in order for them to even be eligible, for us to have that eligibility without clawback from Canada. These are all items that we have to work through, hopefully at a bureaucratic level, at a political level. But if we can't get to the bottom of that and fix that in that way, we know that we have to be a part of taking to court or through human rights. It's been a journey. It's been an incredible, tough journey for us. And all through that has been ensuring that we are not going to cause more harm than helping our people, helping our children because they deserve the best, and developing service models, developing a judicial arm, truly putting together a tribunal that is not just in our act, that has absolutely no teeth, that basically within the act, it's at best a mediation arm. We want that to be the Eagle Women's Tribunal, to be our true judicial arm that is properly funded and has the confidence of the community with the criteria that's set and all the mechanisms in place. And Canada only gives us $175,000 a year for that. There is no way that if you understood, and most of us do, the judicial system, how in the heck can we have a true judicial arm that could properly address these issues, even if it's just child welfare, on $175,000 a year? Luckily, we have made the decision in that pause to not take on protection with the families that came to us that need the protection. We have worked with Third Service, either Yellow Thunderbird Lodge or MSS, until we're ready that we can do the right job, that we are not taking on that liability of protection. It's not perfect. It is absolutely not perfect. But we are so not perfect right now ourselves where we're at. And we are only going into year 3 of what would be 5 years of prepping and planning. And remember, Carrier-Sa County, over 20 years, they've been doing this work, and 10 years they have been preparing for protection, and even they do not believe they are there yet to do the job that needs to be done properly for their children and their families most in need. So there's a lot of decisions and a lot of moving forward that we as a community, as a nation, need to make. Some harsh realities that we have to come to, that the government sold us a dream again. And the reality is that we have to figure out how not to make do, but how to do better. And it's going to take some time, and it's going to take all of us to get there. And it's going to take that patience, that love, that understanding. And the fact is that we didn't get it right the first time, and that's okay. But it sucks that families have been harmed by it. Employment has been affected by it. Community expectations have been dashed. Our nation, the ones that live outside, who thought all of these dreams or bringing our kids home, we don't even have the jurisdiction in order to do that right now. In fact, we have to go to every single province and territory to make a bilateral agreement to even have a say in our Cowessess children's lives. There are so many technical aspects that that probably weren't even known. But it sounded good that we're going to bring our kids home. But you know what? We will. One day we will. But it didn't happen yesterday. It's not going to happen today. And we methodically and seriously, with love and kindness and all of those creators' aspects that we need in order to guide us, that meal pamatsuin, we will do it one day and we will do it together. But we all need to do it together. Next slide, please. I talked a little bit about this, but we don't have to, since I talked about it, really go into it. 2019, Bill C-92, 2020, the Meal Pamatsuin Act. So the citizens voted to pass the Meal Pamatsuin Act in January 2020, and it became into force in January 2020 as well. We do have confirmation that it was written in 5 days because we talked to the crafters of it. The coordination agreement. So we launched Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge in April 2021. And in July, April, May, June, July, Cowessess signed the first coordination agreement with Canada and Saskatchewan, which looked really awesome on TV, but we didn't even have the ability to open it up ourselves. Next slide, please. Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge was launched April 1st, 2021, and it was named through traditional ceremony. And one of the things that Oscapios Grady talked about was about ceremony. And I would just like to state that, you know, through discussions with him, as well as some of our knowledge keepers, as well as the staff, that ceremony started from the beginning and it continues even to today. Last night, there was, you know, the sweat that happens every second Wednesday. That is there for the community. It happens when we pray, when that pipe is lifted. Ceremony has never stopped from that first, even before to right now. So we know that Creator is with us. We are doing the right things. And Creator never, ever, from my teachings, told us that it was going to be easy or that we were going to get it right the first time, but it's always that trying along the way. And so being the first to assert jurisdiction under Cowessess law, the agency started from nothing. Under the Meal Pamatsuin Act, Chief and Council appointed a board of governors to determine strategic direction and find a leader for the organization. Now, under that 5-year planning, normally, in that 5 years of development and growth, if we would have taken that 5 years to develop what we needed to develop as best we could, it probably would have only been in year 4, and we're not even there yet, that we would have developed criteria and put out a call for a board of governors. But we needed to have that board of governors, and that's immediately, and that's why the board of governors was developed. And what that did, and rightfully so, when we get to that place, Chief and Council should have nothing to do with it. Chief and Council, that political arm, should never have any impact on a child welfare agency. And that's what we had intended to do. And again, so thankful for that. But when that flow through of dollars, those C-92 dollars came in, they went straight to Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge. All of those millions of dollars. And a board of directors that was very new and inexperienced, with the best hearts and minds that they have, I have absolutely no doubt, and the love for the children, they became responsible, and probably not smartly so, for the entire welfare of C-92 for the nation. That's what happened. And so when we talk about Chief and Council, not having responsibility underneath or not responsibility, pardon me, having influence on child welfare decisions. By having that flow through, chief and council inadvertently also gave jurisdiction for the whole kit and caboodle to an agency board of governors that was always intended to be at that chief and council governance level. And when we came on and we saw that upside down, we had no ability to work to regain that jurisdiction that should have never been given to a board of governors. And there became that misunderstanding, and we had no choice at the end of the day but to dissolve the board of governors because it wasn't time yet. And we became the interim board of governors in order to do that development work that needed to be done. Now, I know that I can speak for the rest of the council. We can't wait for that day that we put out that call for a board of governors and we step back, because it shouldn't be chief and council there. But also, right now, within that 5 years of planning, there shouldn't have been that time when we had a board of governors as of yet, because we didn't know exactly what the criteria and what our people, not just a few people, but our people who live on reserve and those who live off reserve, the children in care, the aged out children, all of the children, in what they needed. And that is what we intend to do, is go back to the community, go back to the children who are in care, go back to the children who have aged out, the 60 Scoop kids, the community members that live on our nation, as well as off, in order to tell us if our service delivery models, if our governance, our direction for governance, if we're going in the right direction. That is the work that we are doing now and intend to do in the next year, that most likely would have been part of the plan if we would have taken those 5 years. So it's not that we're behind. We're not behind. We're just taking a step back in order to do what we should have methodically done in the first place. So that is our explanation, and I hope that's giving a little bit of a clear understanding of exactly where we've been as chief and council. Next slide, please. So we went, again, the establishment of 2020, the launch in 2021, the development in 2022, and then all of the work I explained in 2023. Next slide. Bumps in the road. The Meow-Pomotsuan Act, and this is not hearsay. This is us talking to the crafters of the Meow-Pomotsuan Act, is that it was put together very quickly because it had an intention for us to have it in place, because we needed that in order to assert that jurisdiction, in order for us to put together that coordination and that fiscal agreement. We needed to have that in place. And it was built on Alberta laws with Alberta people, and mostly non-Indigenous people. It did not fit what we needed, but it was the best that they could do within the time frame that they had. And that's unfortunate, but we're moving towards coming to the people and looking at what amendments need to be made from our worldview. Next slide, please. Lack of funding, like I had talked about. Those people sounding like Don Cherry, the people who did not, the people who don't work in child welfare And the ones that haven't worked directly with families or who have run operations, that was a lot of money. It looked like a lot of money. It wasn't. And so the signed coordination agreement, it doesn't provide enough funding to carry out our responsibilities. And we did not do what we needed to do. And we are actually running in a deficit in Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge now, to the tune of what we're supposed to do with that money, almost $1 million. That's probably surprising to a lot of our membership. And it's why when we talk about stopping the bleed, that we had to look at what services can we provide, what do we need to do in order to move forward. And we've had to look at how to extremely cut expenses in other areas in order to attempt to provide the services that we need to in the most meaningful way. Next slide. Okay, we're almost finished talking about the state of where we are and the exciting opportunities for the future. And this is part of it. What we had, like, right before we went on break, what we had, with the money that was being put into, all of the money that was being put into Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge, it actually became where our child welfare agency became a funder. And never should a child welfare agency be a funder. So Chief Red Bear Lodge started funding positions within the school and within health and different areas. And the sole purpose of a child welfare agency is to look after children and youth and not become a funder. And so that was part of the whole upside downness. And within the silos, what we had found out was, or what we had found, not found out, trying to sound like we're finding out stuff, but what we found was that there was, and this is very common across the board with agencies and First Nations and organizations that deliver all sorts of services and a multitude of services, that unless you do operational evaluations, there's a good chance that there's going to be duplication of services. There's going to be the not only duplication of services, but also without evaluations, you don't know how well they're performing. And that's one of the things that we had found, was that with Cowessess administration over here and Chief Red Bear Lodge equal to chief and council, and actually having the ability to fund programs and services that we actually as a chief and council were not even privy to or had any decision-making ability with, that there was not only that disconnect, but also we didn't have the operational ability, because we're the governance table, but the operational ability within the executive director and all of the services that are being delivered in order to evaluate those services. And so right now, that's really what, on a move forward basis, as we're looking at the coordination of services, that Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge is an integral part of delivering programs and services, and will continue to move forward on more and more services to children and families when it comes to prevention, aftercare, post-majority. But they are not the ones solely responsible, that they will be working within all of the different areas within Cowessess as well. And so there'll be what we're putting together, comprehensive case management. And that will be the ability for families to really move along the spectrum from dependence to independence. And maybe from independence, if there's some slides and some slips, and to be able to do so without guilt, shame, and blame, but having the ability for everybody around the table to work on assisting the family with what they need, and they decide what is best for them. Because only we, when we're in those, even when we're in those most vulnerable positions, we do not give up the right to have the ability to speak for ourselves and what is right for us. Next slide, please. This one, it was, you know, I talked about the governance of it and where we are today. Thank you. So we are still continuing to gather information and restructuring the organization. We are using lessons to build a new sturdy foundation prior to onboarding a new board of governors and a CEO. Right now we have Nicole, who is the interim CEO, and she'll introduce herself, but I'll just give a little bit of a background about her. She is our interim CEO. So she knows this. And she is not stating that she is the CEO. She is a Cowessess member. She is also the person, she is also not only a Cowessess member, but she was a kid in care herself. She grew up in the system. She also had to come back and to develop that identity and to feel welcome back into our community and really find out who she is as a Cowessess member. She holds a master's. She was by trade an LPN. She is not a social worker. She has never stated that she is a social worker to anyone. She is an LPN. She is a person that has a master's in management. She is also one of the founders, as well as one of the people that developed and implemented and has been one of the drivers to Hope's Home, which is the only medical daycare in all of Canada for high complex needs. And that is her forte. She is not saying that she's a social worker. We have social workers that have their bachelor's, that have their master's, that work in that area of child welfare, that need that area of child welfare. What her job is to do is to assist us with what she did over at Hope's Home, with that organizational development, which she has a proven track record, as well as not only with the proven track record, but also with what we need to do differently here and think outside the box, because that's what she had to do when she envisioned Hope's Home with other people and make that happen. And so that's what we're looking for, is that innovation. And we know that there's that social worker aspect, and we know that there is going to be that place where it's very much about that child welfare aspect. But right now, where we're at is organizational development and the structuring and the program models. And she is not only qualified in the Western sense, she has that experience, that proven experience in conceptualizing and having that come to the reality. And more so than that, she is a Cowessess band member, a kid who was in care, and she has come home. And even if she has not grown up in our community and had to reconnect with her family and us as kin, does not make her one drop less of a Cowessess member than any of us who know our family. And that's what's important about what she brings to the position. We don't know what the future looks like, and we will be advertising for a CEO when the time comes. in order to carry on for Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge. But we are not there yet because we are still within that 5 years of that design and that development. And we are very lucky to have Nicole with her set of skills for what she is trying to do. Remember, we are not into protection. We are not at that place of protection. And also, when the time comes, and even right now, we have the skilled and the educated people, most from Cowessess, but not all from Cowessess, most of us Indigenous, but not all Indigenous, that are delivering the very specific skill sets that are needed for people who require social workers. But that is not Nicole, and she has never professed to be that person. Next slide, please. So Chief and Council are working with leadership to develop a new culture of openness. So leadership is all of us. We all have opportunity to take leadership. We are elected leadership, but we have an incredible amount of community leaders, both on our nation and off. And like we had said, and really the leadership of our youth, the leadership of our old people, the leadership, we need leadership in every aspect. And we're committed to working with other CFN admin departments to continue to support and coordinate on programs and services, to especially the priority on reserve. And just very quickly, I know I'm talking about the move forward, and actually I'm going to hand it over to Nicole fairly quickly, is that what we had found was when we came into office was much of the work was based on MSS and provincially, as well as an emphasis on urban. And very little of the programs and services were really concentrating on reserve. And so we immediately said we need to take care of our homelands first and then move outwards. And so that's what our concentration is in building the Mio Pamatsuan Center of Excellence for Children and Youth right on our community, looking at a youth center, looking at all those buildings, those physical buildings that are going to promote wellness and decrease the vulnerability of our children, youth, and families. Next slide, please. So I'm going to hand it over to Nicole to talk about the highlights from the past year, I guess it is.
I'll just give a family overview of Nicole, if you don't mind. She's an Atchikite lady. Her family comes from Chilliwack. Jut in Vancouver, you remember him? Yeah. Johnny was in Edmonton. Marie, right? Marie, that she hasn't met, by the way. She never met Marie. I met Marie, and I met all of those people when we went out the first time, when I was doing this job the first time. And Marie was in Edmonton, and I met her family, and she hasn't met her family. And so I just wanted to introduce you. Oh, Chilliwack was he was over in the home at Wolseley, and some of his family went to Winnipeg. So everybody knows who we are. And please support her. You know, everybody is just getting together, and we're all trying to get this thing working. And probably we should support one another. And I'm glad the chief went over the overview here because it gives us a bit more empathy for the people that are moving forward. Okay, so give a round of applause to Nicole. Welcome home.
Hi, everybody. So one of the things that Chief didn't mention is that I am also a mother. I have an 18-year-old son and a 14-year-old son and a 2-year-old. Actually, today is his birthday. So happy birthday, Levi. But the one thing that I want to speak about is not only the highlights for the last little bit, but also my children and my passion for children. Not only with Hope's Home, but my firstborn was born with complex medical needs. So Ethan was born with tracheal and laryngomalacia. He was born with pyloric stenosis. And he's gone through 5 surgeries, and we've had to travel to Edmonton for most of his procedures. He was tube fed until he was 3.5 years old. And so as a young mom, I was only 21 at the time. I had to take care of my son on my own. I didn't know anything about my nation. I had no idea, but I was also discriminated within the hospital system as a young mom and an Indigenous mom. There were multiple times where they said, your child's not sick, you need to get out of here. They tried to, basically send me home multiple times where he would develop pneumonias and we'd have to get air ambulance lifted to different places such as Saskatoon or Edmonton. So me and my husband at that time, we went through a lot for our son, Ethan. We still continue to struggle with Ethan today. He is 18, he survived everything, but he also has autism. And so we as a family, we also know that he will be with us most likely for the rest of his life. So I have a family at home, and I'm a mom. And
I might have used up the
hello,
battery.
hello. It was totally her. Help. No, it turned off again. Hello. I'm not long-winded like Chief over here. But that's what drives my passion for our children is my children, right? And so I seen, rather than me sitting in that muck and saying, poor me, like not only was I, raised in a really bad environment as a child and had I was smoking cigarettes when I was in grade 3, hitchhiking to Muscadet Reserve. I was people didn't even know where I was when I was a kid. But I thought I was getting through that when I was the first to graduate from high school. And then I graduated from the licensed practical nursing program in Prince Albert. And I thought things were I was like, you know what, I'm out of this situation. Life is starting over. And then when Ethan was born, it was instant. He was sick. I was in hospital. I had to live in the hospital, basically work on pediatrics, and then basically stay in the room with my son. So I was always like, well, why me? Why did this happen to me? Why is this continuing to happen? And so I had every excuse in the book to really turn towards the negative of situations. And I chose different, as hard as it is, I chose different. I chose, you know what? I don't want this to ever happen to another family where they don't have support, where they have no place to take their children. They can't even work. So I decided to support Jackie. When I first started with her, she had a little 1,000-square-foot home with 4 kids in there. And we were able to grow that organization just based on passion for the children and our families throughout the whole province of Saskatchewan in a $14 million operational budget that we partnered with the province, with Ministry of Education, Health and Social Services. So that was a huge passion project for me. So when Cadmus approached me to come and support our nation, I was really excited, to be a part of this. And I still am excited to be a part of this. I am a servant leader, so I serve you. I try to, listen as much as I can. I try to encourage the staff and the people to be involved in all of the programs and the development of the organization. It was tough times for a little bit when I first came back home. Very tough to be in an organization that's brand new with people that didn't really know what was going on. And I felt like I was like, we need to do this and we need to do this, but it was hard for me to voice that concern. So when I went on my maternity leave, I went to Queen's University. I got accepted into Queen's University and I took my Master's of Management for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And I got my master's so that maybe people would listen to me, So I'm really, I'm proud of that, to have that colonial, label on my name. But when I was at the program, really, I was like supporting other people in that program to help them with their ventures and support. So it really confirmed my knowledge and the things that I was able to like accomplish in my life. But really, I didn't turn to something bad. I took those very poor situations and they turned them into opportunities for children and families. And I want to help here, So I appreciate all of the support, the staff and all of the community. And yeah, so with that, thank you. So the highlights. So since being the interim CEO, I got appointed, I think in July 18th or something like that last year, just to help support. In the last 6 months, we've provided 47 programs and 30 activities within the community. We've observed an influx in community participation, which has been awesome. We've worked alongside chief and council to lay the essential groundwork and establish the foundational elements. Now, that's been a very big piece, I find, since being with the organization from the start and, going through board members and different CEOs. I think that's the one piece that was missing was we needed to establish the foundation of what Cowessess needs, what our members need. So it's been a blessing to actually work alongside our leadership in this journey. So we've been heavily involved. Our team has been heavily involved in developing the service delivery model and accompanying program models with it. So I'm not sure if any of you guys have come out to some of the engagements that we've had with Chief Red Bear, where I've presented program models and just stuff for you guys to see. It's better to just throw something down on the table and have you guys critique it rather than everybody having a blank sheet of paper, right? So that's kind of where my head went when we started the process of designing the program model. The team was able to attend all of the Christmas engagements and provide information where we were at with Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge, and we've finished our first annual report. So as a nonprofit organization, that's what we're licensed as. There wasn't an AGM report, and that's like kind of mandatory. So we completed that and it is posted on the website. Next slide. We provided advocacy support for those working with the Ministry of Social Services. So that's one of the things that Phyllis and her team and the social workers, if you want to give a wave, there you go. So all of them, they've really been supporting, calls from different provinces and, the children and the families and, supporting with court processes. And so they're really busy and they're part of that intake portion of our organization to help streamline kind of where the families get the supports. So we have a strong cultural component to our work, and we are proud of the cultural care that we're able to provide to the youth and the families internally. Our staff are in CCEC and supporting the youth in the school environment. So we've placed some staff in there. Our team attend our team went to the youth conference that you guys probably seen. We'll hopefully be posting some pictures of it, but it was a very, very good engagement for the youth. And then the next slide. Okay, so important reminders is that we are reestablishing our processes and our programs and services. Despite how programs were run in the past, we want to make sure that members know that we are not providing endless financial supports to individuals or families. We are committed to creating a process of fairness when it comes to accessing funds and emergency supports. So those processes are underway. So we're really designing all of that of like, a high needs, high risk family, as opposed to, hey, I just need this one-time support, So we're really establishing those boundaries and guidelines. Next slide. Yes, so we're also wanting to remind members that we are here to enrich and support healthy children and families. We are not the Ministry of Social Services, and we want to support on creating healthy relationships and are committed to working one-on-one if you would like support. So there is going to be criteria if you want support that, so it just helps us understand where you're at financially, what kinds of things we can support you with, how can we help you with budgeting, because some people just don't know how to do those things. So we are going to have those processes in place, rather than in the past, it was just kind of anybody got whatever they needed. And it's fair, but I think that we also need to have some processes for that. Next slide. Where are we going? Okay, so the road ahead. So we are continuing to work towards supporting families and children to create a healthy community. So developing of our future services. So post-majority is a brand new funding model, and we're just in the process of designing that as well. So we have a team that's directly on that process. Child protection will be in the future. We are not ready for child protection yet. We have to remember that these are children's lives, and we have to be ready for this. It's not just a switch of a button. Early learning and childcare, that's my biggest, funnest one because I come from that area, but we have been awarded daycare spaces, you guys. So that's huge. And it's only that $10 a day childcare. So we'll be implementing our early learning centers as, probably within the next year or so once we get a building established. But we have spaces on reserve and spaces in the city for our children. We are hoping to work with some of you to design a culturally sensitive curriculum. So with following the developmental milestones of children. And then care for complex needs, just, that's also my thing. Making sure that our families that have children that are complex, that they get the supports that they need. We do also support families to access Jordan's principle. And so we'll help with that process too. Support for addictions, access to mental health supports, traditional birthing is another one that we'd like to implement, and therapeutic homes where we take the whole family in and help them reestablish kind of like who they are as a family so that they can transition into the community if they're struggling, and continue to adapt our staff and our organization to the needs of the community, and then developing our 10-year model for services for the community. Next slide. So we are prioritizing prevention and other areas apart from protection until we can fully address those needs. In the meantime, we will not be engaging in protection measures until we can fully support our children and families in a way they deserve. So we're really going to focus on prevention. In the bill C-92, it does have a portion that prevention is our number one. However, the way the federal government is funding it, it's capping the amount that we get for prevention services. So I think that's something that I think Cindy, who was it that was saying that they might address, but that's going to be addressed, because if we're supposed to be really focusing on prevention, then the funding should be higher than the funding for protection. We can actually ask for all the funding in the world as long as it relates to protection, but prevention, you're limited. So we're still doing the same thing, right? We're still limited to asking for funding for protection services rather than really being able to, here's our service model, and this is what we need because this is what prevention is, but we don't have enough money for prevention. So next slide. Oh, this is yours. Oh, that's it. That's all mine. Thanks.
That is it. How do you like that? One of our children found their way home, come back to help us. Isn't that wonderful? The question here is, what do you want to develop programming that supports families? What are programs or services you would like to see offered in our community? We have 39 people online, remember, and about 34 here. We got a good. Anybody in the front? Lucy, and then Heather.
Good evening, everyone. So just to be quick, we need to start with the youth and we need to start in our schools so that we can redesign our curriculum so we can build life skills, we can build entrepreneurships right there and plant the seeds there so that they can evolve in the community and have better choices to make. And that's where with the prep center, with with the Cowessess Red Bear, with our education, our post-secondary, it has to be a synergized approach to how we're going to fill in those gaps and identify where we're going to have focus and build that foundational building block so that we can continue to keep building capacity. And that's really the key, is build capacity, learning and sharing. Thank you.
Heather.
What I'd like to see for our families out here, we have a lot of young families that are single parents that have no access to transportation. So you have families that are on social assistance that are paying for transportation to go for their groceries. So why can't there be something developed for these young families once a month, welfare day, family allowance day, to give them those rides instead of them having to take $70 to $100 to go and buy groceries in Yorkton or Regina, where it's more food accessibility and also the cost, because they're going into Broadview where the prices are so marked up. I've worked at the prep center with clients, and this is what they're paying: $100 to go to Yorkton, $100 out of $300. Our kids are suffering. Those kids are suffering. Those are our children. So why can't we provide some kind of support in that way of these young families, of these children that are there? Provide access to transportations to get off the reserve, to go for these things. There's so much more. So thank you.
Yeah, that's one of, it's a really practical support, and I support the idea. People don't have any way to get around to get good groceries and good food. Anybody else? Anybody else in the house? Yeah, reach out. I guess we'll reach out and we'll try work these things out, I think, as a nation, as we figure out what our needs are together. And as we're talking together, which is really good. Let's see what somebody else said here. Hold on. Britton Schultz. I agree, programming in the school to build capacity within youth. Programs focused on healthy relationships, consent, and boundaries for young people. Healthy and respectful relationships. Anybody else in-house? In-house, we got to get these draws ready. So I need some helpers. 39 here. Start ripping those pages apart. This is a really good community governance. This is what community governance is, not Indian affairs governance. And if we don't talk to one another, we're not going to know what our needs are. And like I said before, what? Does it work? Cutting out. Keeps cutting out. Yes. Anybody else? Maybe we can go to our draws if we can't. If we're ready, you're still cutting up paper. Well, I think that was pretty good. I think that was really good. Okay, another one online. Yes, Krista Delorme, are off-reserve youth going to have access to prevention and healing services in the future? We all have those youth in the cities. And Lucy, one more time. He's going to answer about the youth in the city.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So off reserve youth
Yeah.
in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's part of our process. Of course, we're going to be doing a project charter for Cowessess First Nation. Our main focus is going to be establishing some really good services on the nation. However, if there's youth that are needing support in the city, please reach out no matter what. we need to hear from you. Maybe you can be involved in some of the programs that we offer. Yeah, so that's completely fine, but we really do need to hear from our youth. So please reach out to us.
Right on.
And also just to further, we're not all of our members live in Regina, but a good majority do. Now, stating that right now, as we move and we evolve, our resources are concentrated on Reserve and in Regina. But as we as council do our job in those bilateral agreements with other provinces and we're costing out, we'll be able to provide not only through Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge, but also through opportunities such as drawdowns from our potentially drawdowns from our 1907 trust and other wealth creation strategies in order to provide services not only for the youth, but for the seniors and other people in all of the other cities as well.
Lucy, she has a good question and a suggestion online as well.
So I think we should also be able to design our own family systems training for our people, our staff, any employees that work for us that don't come from here, as well as offer that to our families and our youth. And we also have that ability to leverage capital from Jordan's Principles funding to create institutional developments like youth facility, playground development, things that keep the kids active in all our 4 elements, get them off of gaming and sitting in there on the TV with too much screen time, and get them back out, getting fresh air, getting good exercise, and reconnecting with Mother Earth.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have one more, a couple more here. Kristen McNabb, creating culture camps for families where we can heal together. Kind of a nice one.
Cultural camps.
Brandon has to answer these questions.
Add it,
Oh, I'm sorry.
add on to it.
I'm sorry.
So I'll just add on to, I guess, to that, and this will reflect in Regina as well. We are coming up with that plan to use Jordan's principal capital as well as more of the C92 capital and other capital out there as well that we can tie into and access to avoid spending our own nation's dollars to help develop these infrastructures. And the goal for the on reserve building is to build that center for everybody to go to. It's going to be a building where they're going to be able to access any kind of services and the services that we need to hear from our community here, online, everywhere. We really need your input and your voices on what that looks like. When we're talking with addictions, what services do our people need for these addictions to overcome them? Maybe it's something as simple as, well, I just want something to do. Well, you can go to these to the center, and there'll be activities and cultural stuff. There'll be physical stuff, sports stuff, just whatever it is. But we need to hear these ideas. We have ideas, but they're ours. The minds of eight people around the table and our chief, so the 9 of us. But that's just 9 minds. We have 4,500 members that we need to serve. It shouldn't just come off the minds of us at that table. We really want your input so we can actually put those into action. But that is on the radar. We are in the works of going into the Jordan's Principal capital applications. We actually do have one submitted. Melissa somewhere? She's hiding. Our Jordan's Principal capital's in our application? Yes. So our group application's in. All our directors, a lot of our staff really put their heads together on their wish list of what they want to see in this building, existing programs, but also programs that they want to do that they're not able to do because we really don't have a lot of space everywhere. But we are looking into that, and hopefully in next couple of years that it is going to become a reality, and this building will be here for our people. And then we're going to do the same thing duplicated in Regina. And then hopefully we can do that same thing wherever other members are and use this as a duplication model. And I just can't wait until it actually comes in a physical form and we're not just talking about it.
And just further to that, I think that Escapios Grady thought that Brandon was evil or something, because all of a sudden a big, a big smudge went right from behind him.
Not at all. I don't. I
And
would
shaped
never-
up his horns. But we're excited to, invite you out to our housing and infrastructure as well. Because when we're talking about those home fires, when we're talking the home fires inside as well as the physical structures, in having healthy children, families, youth and communities here, we're also very, very excited to announce that within all of these plans, we're looking at an influx, a potential influx of a lot of new homes for our community here.
Also, I just want to touch on Georgia. Uh, just while they're having their conversation over there, Georgia was instrumental in opening up a sort of a cultural camp that we have going at the Powell grounds there. We're going to be putting a permanent sweat up there. A lot of times, I know we all file different ways and things. So what's happening with that community sweat is that it's going to be year round. The cultural area is going to be available for everybody of the community. The thing with the sweat lodge, it's going to be a winterized one. So a lot of times people have different ideas, I guess, about different people. So I know that Pat Sparbier holds sweat lodges for the ladies in the community. Some people don't want to go over there. Some people know that Owen has a summertime sweat, and some people don't want to go over there. Some people know that I host a sweat that pretty much all year round, but they don't want to come over to my place. So it gives a sort of a neutral place for everybody, that if you have an elder that you know of that you want to bring to the community to have a sweat, it's going to be there for you. It's going to be stocked with wood and rocks and those types of things. There is going to be rules to it, because like I said, anytime everybody gets involved in something, sometimes things get missed out or whatever. So we're getting those things established and making sure that everybody's looked after, right? As we know, not just the cultural end of it, but we're going to get into the hide tanning and stuff like that. I know Stan does a lot of that, so we're probably going to get him to come and do some workshops on some of that. So we're trying to use the people from the community to come in and show us how to do it, right? And the biggest part of this is we want our kids to learn, right? Because they're the next generation. So when we're going to do these things, we want the young ones to the old ones, and also the hunters in the community will be looking after them as well. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'd like to advocate for the mental health of our young men. That a lot of them don't have homes, and we really, really need extra help in that area, because there's getting to be more and more health problems that are showing up on our reserve. And I think we should be looking into getting them some help and some homes, because we got to do something. They have no homes, and they shouldn't be sitting in a care home, because they're young men. They're not old. They just have a mental problem. That's all, So I really have feelings for that generation of people that are struggling with mental health.
I do too.
So we had a couple meetings today and yesterday with some of our, I guess, industry. They don't want to call themselves experts, but to us, they're experts because they've been doing it for years. And again, a lot of stuff comes from like brainstorming. One thing that came up today is the overlapping of what Chief Red Bear Lodge is doing. So a lot of the stuff that's asked of them is overlapping into. Thank you, Grady. is overlapping into other departments. So they're asked to, you know, educate our kids. They're asked to provide health services to our kids. And these are departments that our Cowessess First Nation already operates in it, but we can still like expand on those. But I kind of like took a step back and like what we should be asking or looking at is what does it look like to actually raise our healthy kids? Yes, it's health. Yes, it's education. Yes, it's our culture. Yes, it's our recreation. I don't want to call it sports and recreation because there's still arts and music and all that kind of into it. But like to expand on just those food for our kids, which is food sovereignty. We've spoken on that. But like if we think about it, like what does it actually look like to raise a healthy kid? Because this is really a great opportunity for us to right some wrongs that were done to us in the past. Our residential schools, our 60s scoops, all our other things that our parents and grandparents, great grandparents have went through. So that's the question on like, what does it look like to raise a healthy child and work around that? Some other stuff was safety, community safety, policing, peacekeepers, fenced yards, dogs, like stuff like that. And those are just things I was kind of just jotting stuff down today. But that should be kind of the question when we're asking this when we're talking about the programs. What programs does it take to raise that healthy child? And it is our young men. We've noticed that, and we've also expanded on that, and it's our young women. It's just our youth in general. We need support for them, and we need opportunity for them. When we come across, and I don't really want to say this, but when we come across and we see this funding come through, who gets approved for post-secondary, and we have to turn away a number of people, that sucks because we just don't get the funds for it. And that's really so it's depressing when you want to do something with your life and you're trying to go to post-secondary and get better after you finish your grade 12 and then you get told no. It's like it just sucks. You want to do something better, and now you're like, hey, now what do? I don't even qualify for school. I can't do something better. So if we can find a way to expand on education and post-secondary, our prep center, like I said, it's just brainstorming, it's just thinking and give us those ideas so we can put them into action. Go after the funding we need, whether it's through Jordan's principal applications, whether it's going after the government through another fiscal and coordination agreement. This really is an opportunity for us to change the lives of our children and our grandchildren. Because I have a grandchild, so I'm a mushroom now. Oh, I'm old. Yeah, I am. And it was just his 1 year or his first birthday last week. So so I'm like a mushroom of 1 year now. But so just stuff like that. That's just kind of what I think of when I hear those questions about supporting our kids. And yes, and again, if we get this physical structure there, so our people know where to go. They're gonna have a building to go to it, and then okay, this is what I'm going through, and okay, well, you're gonna talk with Nicole. Nicole's gonna direct you to whatever staff she has available, if she's still the CEO at that time. Just kidding. But we're looking at it, and we've heard it, and we really want to help our kids and our youth because there's a lot of those problems going out there, and I think a lot of us went through it. I know I can say I did. I went through all those mental states that people shouldn't go through, and it's just things I think that people go through in life, but we shouldn't have to.
Excellent thoughts. Can we go online here? And then we have some questions in the back on this side, another one from Jennifer. But the one online here comes from Crocom iPhone. She usually sits here. She's tall. She's outspoken. I don't know who you're talking about. But she had to go home, she says. I feel we need training on how to handle hard drugs addictions, as this is a reality and the damage that it does to the brain. How do we as a community understand the challenges on hard drug use and the effect it has on the brain? A hard question. I don't know.
I just have a comment on that. One of the major things that I don't agree with is the fact that marijuana was legalized, because from a medical perspective, when that drug was legalized, you know, some of our young kids are actually starting way sooner with drugs than they should be. And when you do, the one thing that people don't realize with marijuana is that if you have a dormant you know, psychological condition such as schizophrenia or something along those lines, smoking marijuana prior to the age of like 24 actually makes it active. So our young people are starting so early with drugs, and it could potentially it is damaging our children and our youth. So when it comes to drugs and health and wellness and that that is a big focus that we would like to really provide more education to our children, especially in the schools, you know, with our really young ones as well. Just letting, like, the more they learn about it, you know, we're hoping that it could be more of a preventative measure for them. As far as the older ones that has been in part of our program design would be those addiction services. We're looking at a lot of the land-based addiction services. So working alongside Grady for potentially like outdoor detox rehabilitation programs.
Jennifer. Question back here right after Jen.
My question is about what kind of advocacy services do you provide for the young families that have family breakdowns? So they have to deal with not only themselves, but the poverty, the addiction. And there's no support for those families unless they're gonna get their kids taken away. So that there's no advocacy unless they're going to the social services now. So they need to have that, to know that that advocacy is there to support them when they're going through that with the Ministry of Social Services, because we can't provide those protection services yet.
Who's that? For an answer? Okay, who's the one going to be giving an answer back here?
And not only for this single parent
Really?
families, but for those families that have family breakdowns. Because sometimes they're fighting over their kids. And not only fighting amongst themselves and fighting over their kids, but they don't have no supports on how to even resolve their own problems and situations.
So my team is the team that is the social work crew. So we provide advocacy services, and not just for families who are dealing with MSS, but dealing with all sorts of different systems. So right now our team also does the intake and prevention services. So that would fall under prevention services. So they could just give me a call or give Amanda a call, and we will, you know, speak with them to figure out what the situation is and give them the best advice that we can. Sometimes we can't offer that advice because sometimes they need to go to an expert in that area. But we do promote mediation and working it out, because I do believe that children deserve to have both parents in their lives, and we'd like to just see like how that works, right? And just make sure that kids are safe in those situations as well. Thank you.
Rhonda's next. Thank you for your answer.
Just to add on to that as well, and I'm not sure a lot of the community members know about it, but we do have circles, any one of our community members, if you're having an issue in your household or with another community member, give us a call. We'll gladly be the circle provider, meaning there's someplace safe that you could both express what's going on, so that we could actually get to the root of what's going on, or to help you through what needs to be helped, right? So you're not alone. If you have issues, give us a call. We could help.
Hi, I'd like to take the time to thank Chief Erica for enlightening me on what has been happening. As a staff member, I didn't know any of that stuff that you went through. And right now, I have a heavy heart because I'm wondering how many of the staff members are going to get laid off? Are we going to lose our jobs to save money? What needed to happen prior to this meeting was leadership to meet with the staff and bring that to us before coming out. I'm sure many of the staff members here seen that for the first time. We hear a lot of hearsay out there. But like I said before, if you don't hear it with your own ears, you don't see it with your own eyes, it's hearsay. And tonight, I seen with my own eyes, I heard with my own ears, and I have a heavy heart. Some of our staff, they work hard. You know, they come out from Regina and they drive back 2 hours after 4:30. Our work doesn't end at 4:30. When you have to travel, that work is still in your mind, trying to figure out how you could help a family or someone. Some of them give 110% for our people. So we're doing the best we can. But then again, how can you help people when they don't want to help themselves and the children suffer? That's a struggle we face with families in our community and in the urban area. How do we help families that don't want to help themselves? We face that every day. I'm hoping that we can have a meeting with leadership next week with staff and leadership. Because now, like as I said, I'm leaving here with a heavy heart, wondering what's in store for us down the road. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep, Rhonda, just, I know you've been away for a while with your operation and such, and there's no burden worse than what we've carried over the last little while, but the worst is over. Like a lot of the stuff that it's all been mitigated. It's the budgets are in, the budgets have been approved, so all your jobs are safe. It's just going forward now on, there's certain circumstances that the chief and council have to arrange and get some of this other stuff done to ensure that we get the proper funding and those types of things, right? So everything's all kosher. Nobody's going to lose their job, at least I hope. No, it's not going to happen. So, but the thing is, we just had a staff meeting just a little while ago and I missed out, of course. I had to go, there was a funeral that I had to go and attend, but I think it was just in Grenfell. So I don't know if you were there at that meeting or not, but yeah, I think the cat was out of the cradle then, so, but everything's good.
Okay, thank you. I haven't,
And, oh, sorry. I just want to say that, as Uncle Grady had said, is that I shouldn't say the worst is over, but all risk has been mitigated. And so the staff that are there, we actually from this point on expect to start increasing services and staffing from this point on. So it's not, if you would have asked us 6 months ago, or it would have been a different story. But as we're negotiating new programs and services and not just from one area, we're actually looking at increasing staff as we increase programs and services. So the organization is now in a period of not only stabilization, but calculated growth.
thank you very much. Thank you very much for that answer. Right on. Okay, I'm gonna let Audrey take a question here.
Oh, I was just going to mention that I'd like to thank Cowessess. I've taken a lot of courses with Cowessess and talking about children and the things that they have access to nowadays, which we didn't have when we were growing up. But like liquor and that, there's a program called Growing Great Kids. And it explains to you exactly what happens in your brain when you do alcohol or drugs. And it's a really good program. Maybe we should ask the health to have that program available to the young mothers, because that really opens your eyes as to what happens. Growing great kids.
Okay, Heather's here. I have some comments online after Heather.
We talk about building, the buildings for our youth and the community, that the upcoming buildings. Where is our building or office for our off-reserve staff? Where is their place accessible for them? Where they're all working out of different tribal councils or different offices. Like, how come we don't have our own office in Regina where our people could go, where our members have nowhere to go? Because right now, I've asked that question. When my son needed somewhere, where does he go to? He's not coming back down here to look for services. He's in Regina looking for services. You know, where's those people? Why don't they have an office? The people that are coming to the reserve are paid to come out to work out here. They get mileage to come out, or they have a vehicle to come out. If this is their permanent job, then they should be out here. Nobody paid me to go to my permanent job, you know? But the big thing is in Regina, in these inner cities, where is it our members can go to access these programs? They have nowhere. They don't even know where to go because there isn't a place to go. I know that at one time there was a considerable amount of money that was given for office space that wasn't there. Now, where is our office in Regina for our people? Where are they going to go? Go out to Gordon's, go out to Fort Capel? How do they find them? They're not going to come back here. My son that needs support in the city, that needs cultural support, addiction support, a social worker that's going to help guide him in the city, he's not coming back out here. You know, so we need something to look at is get us an office. You can't tell me there's no office space in Regina, because I go in Regina, I see all the office space there. Get us an office and get our employees in one space so we can work together instead of sporadically all over the place.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you for that question, Heather. And that's one of the areas that we have been challenged with is, first of all, there is a plan to have office space in Regina. And in actuality, it's actively seeking. The challenge that we've had is that in the O&M, or the money for rental space, when you mentioned, okay, I want to say this in the best way possible. When you mentioned that there was a considerable amount of money that was already utilized in order to have office space for the city, you're absolutely correct. There was last year when the flood claim vote did not go through, and that money was meant to be utilized for capital for what was at that time the Urban Indigenous Health Center, which was where Chief Red Bear Lodge was going to hold some space, but not the entire space. There was an ask by the Chief Red Bear Children's to the Red Bear Children's Lodge Board of Governors for over $1 million in prepaid rent for an office building that was not in existence. And we have through the months have found out that in soft costs, 3/4 of that amount has been spent on consultants. And that was capital monies that should not have been, first of all, requested nor granted. And so our challenge is, with the operational funds that we have, and to ensure that the rest of the capital monies, as well as any capital asks that we have, that we don't have further liability in purchasing or planning to build office spaces or lease office spaces where there is no money. So we are now in the position of, because C-92 is meant first and foremost for on reserve, prioritizing the on reserve, but ensuring that we have space, but we have limited monies for to prioritize a large space in Regina with that reality that we found out and walked into. But you're absolutely correct. There needs to be that space and that place for our members that need that support to be there. And we are looking at what we are able to manage within our operating costs where we are able to afford it with what we have discovered.
You want workers to go to work, not work from home.
That's actually stopped now. We don't have any workers that work from home any longer, and prevention staff are expected to work on reserve as well as in space in Regina.
We also have a space in Regina, FHQ, so lots of our staff work out of that location.
All right, well, we're on our way, I guess, like it or not. We have some comments online, and I'm not so sure there's any more in-house. If not, we'll use these as a closing comments here. Coming from Kelly Fremont, she says, "Thank you for the information shared. Much work done and to be worked on collectively, respectfully for our children and community." Krista McNabb says about offering trauma-informed teaching strategies to our youth to improve coping strategies, to create youth group where kids can feel safe and talk about what they're going through at home. Chastity Lorm says, community involvement is so essential to individual healing. We need to support and encourage students, siblings, aunts, uncles, and our kokums and mushums. The power of relationship. Love and bond is extremely powerful to our biological health. Chastity continues, and she's. That's a correction. Okay. That's it. Then that's it for online. We have 33 people. We had up to 35 online. So we had about 70 people, 39 people online at the most. We have a couple more comments, questions here.
Just have a comment. I want to thank this young council for all the things and hard work they done. And I was talking to Grady not too long ago, and he told me, and you guys are on the right track. And I told him over and over again, you can't start nothing without a foundation. And you've got it. You've got it started, and it may take years for us, maybe not in my lifetime, but it's here. It's here, and I want to thank you.
Well, I'm glad somebody sees that. I see that too. Thank you very much. That was excellent work so far. Good enough. Thank you. Well, I think we should cut her down. Is that it? Oh yes, I forgot about the draws. This one is which one? In-house, online, the online people.
Just before we get to the draws, on behalf of our council and all of our staff, I want to thank you as a community and as a nation for working with us. And I know there's been frustration. I know there's been uncertainty. I know there's been anger and all of that comes with growth and not knowing. And just from the bottom of our hearts, I want to say thank you. And we will, now that we've had this meeting, we plan on updating in a much more timely fashion. And but like I said, our reason for taking this long is it took us this long to get to this point, and we didn't want to come to community until we had the plan forward, because otherwise it's just complaining. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and we will do this, and we will do this together with love, compassion, dignity, because the little ones deserve that. So on behalf of us, once again, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Excellent, excellent job. Really excellent, excellent work.